and been energy modeling since 2003. That was pretty much, at least when I started, I think it was the beginning of energy modeling here in Boise. I didn't know a whole lot of people that were doing it. And I jumped in with both feet. My first project was the Banner Bank building, Platinum building, and was basically handed eQUEST files and told to work from there. I'd never heard of eQUEST. And of course, these files were built entirely in detailed interface, so it was definitely like drinking from a fire hose. So, but you know, so when I first got into modeling the Banner Bank building project, I was all gung ho. I was going to grab the modeling world by the horns, and I was going to be exact and going to do all the details. But I think that got back to as a kid doing the plastic model cars and all the fine detail, but quickly realized that being exact versus representative doesn't always pay for itself. Obviously there's not a lot of time. Sometimes projects are constrained by time, and in this case that I'm going to go over, constrained by modeling the software limitations. So I guess in roundabout way, I've come to accept that representative is good versus exact. Although it took me some kicking and screaming, I think, to come to that conclusion. So this project that I'm going to discuss it's a new building down at CSI, College of Southern Idaho, in Twin Falls. It's called the Applied Technology and Innovative Center. It's a classroom and shop building, basically. It's to teach I want to say boat tech, but it's actually HVAC classes, actually working on HVAC equipment, and that sort of thing. It was a LEED project, is a LEED project, so we filled out all the forms, or at least I have. I'm not sure about the other credits. I don't think it's been submitted yet. Building had several unique features to model. Lighting, they had some pop-up. You can see it's not real clear, but they had some pop-up skylights over the corridors, and they had it's like a climbing tower in the corner there. But obviously the HVAC features were the most unique and the hardest to figure out how to do. So the let's see, let me get my point. So I didn't do the design in our office; another engineer did. So that always, as probably most of you know, kind of makes it harder to model. If you do the design, you're already familiar with the project but basically it's a VAV system with hot water reheat. There's 3 air handlers, large air handlers. One air handler individually serves each shop. There's 2 large shops, and then a 3rd air handler serves a classroom area. That was no problem. I've done VAV systems before. They have geothermal on site. They use wastewater, 90-degree wastewater. Again, not a problem to model. I've done, the Banner Bank had geothermal. I think probably a lot of you have modeled geothermal with just a steam meter. That's about the easiest way, I think, or the only way I do it on eQUEST. Then I come across this heat pump chiller that's in the design. It provides simultaneous chilled and hot water, and it boosts the building heating loop. Basically, the system consists of the chiller, boiler, one unit. It's connected to a condenser loop, and then the condenser loop is hooked to the geothermal and the cooling tower. And then on the building side, you got your separate chilled and hot water loops. So obviously it was a system that I haven't ever modeled before. And so anyway, then the cooling tower, that's easy to model. And then runaround loops, they're on 2 of the on the air handlers. The ones that serve the shops, they have runaround energy recovery loops, which again, eQUEST doesn't do. eQUEST is air-based, so I had to figure out a way to do those as well. Just to touch on the loops, I guess, or to describe the HVAC system. Again, the cooling tower, the condenser loop is kept, I believe, at 70 to 80 degrees year round. Summer or winter time, it's more like 70 degrees. We have 90-degree wastewater, and then the cooling tower is 80, 85, 90, 95. But that condenser loop is kept at 70 to 80 degrees, and then the heat pump produces 45, 55-degree water, chilled, and I believe it's 95 to 105 hot water out to the building. So where do I start? I guess I started with the wizards to start off with easy, inputting the building, zoned it per the plans, assigned the zones to respective air handlers, windows, doors, etc. Created a VAV system standard in wizards, so that sets up your boiler, your loops, and then I started being creative in detailed interface. So this is the zoning, basically the building, and you can see the upper right is one of the shops that had an air handler. The upper left is another shop with another air handler, and then everything out front, classrooms and everything, corridors, support areas. That was the third air handler. Only the two shop areas have runaround loops, and then there was a few minor. I think the back storage areas had hot water, heaters and stuff. And of course, I included the lead model, but I'm not discussing here. That's a mechanical room. They've actually got, well, it was actually kind of a two-story mechanical room. They've got the air handlers are up on a second floor above that, and in here is, I believe, all the pumps and stuff and everything. So how do I model that heat pump chiller? I've never done an eQUEST, didn't know what it was. But so I started looking around and looking through the eQUEST help documents, and lo and behold, they do have an option. It's not available in the wizard, but once you get in the detailed interface, there's this heat pump chiller, but this loop-to-loop heat pump, a chiller which consists or cools a chilled water circulation loop and simultaneously heats a hot water loop. So I thought, great, easy. And then I see that second part there. It also has to be coupled to a lake well circulation loop, as the heat pump does. So, crap, I don't have lake well. I have a geothermal loop and a cooling tower.
Is this the lead modeling guidelines, or this is just eQuest?
This is just eQuest, information out of eQuest that I searched. Like I said, I didn't know what they had for chiller capabilities and stuff. This was just, actually there was a few other forms on this loop-to-loop heat pump that are in the eQuest help documents, but everything else actually looked quite similar to what I had, so it was nice to see. The lake well loop interfaces with the two heat exchangers, that's what I have. I've got a geothermal heat exchanger, or a heat exchanger between the geothermal and the condenser loop, and another heat exchanger from between the cooling tower and the heat pump chiller. So reading through all this, I'll be, except for the caveat that you have to connect to a lake well, it all looked like it was going to work pretty well. So as I said, I set up a standard VAV system. So I had my boiler, my chiller, loops, and everything. And I get into the detailed interface, and I start deleted the boiler, deleted the cooling tower, created a lake well as my heat dump and heat source. And then I set the chiller, I didn't circle it there, the type. It's up there, loop-to-loop heat pump on the pull-down menu. It's the upper left there on the, yeah, I was right. So it said, from the wizards, it said like centrifugal or whatever I said. Just so I set that to loop heat pump, and then these come available. And if you back out there a little bit, I'd never seen this before, obviously. So I set the chilled water loop. You set one piece of equipment to the chilled water loop, hot water loop, and your condenser water loop. So if you look up, like I said, I'm used to seeing a boiler with a hot water loop separate, and chilled water loop with a chiller. Here I've got this heat pump and like I said, I've never seen this on eQUEST, so it's kind of cool. Basically, one piece of equipment serving the chilled and hot water, and eQUEST is showing it diagrammatically. So I thought I was on the right track. So once I had the chiller set up, this is under miscellaneous tab. These become available, I believe, after I set the chiller to loop. These are my temperatures for my heat exchanger, what I'm going to be seeing, basically what the geothermal is going to be providing to the loop, and what is the cooling tower is going to be providing. In the design, the loop is going to be 70 degrees. This one I don't think it would run, if I set the condenser to 70 degrees as well, I think it would crash out on me. So technically, I have 90-degree water, geothermal, and it's going to raise that temperature up to 70 in the wintertime, add heat if it drops below 70, and then in the summertime, the cooling tower is going to reject heat and maintain 70 or between 78 plus or minus. But so this is what I'm setting here is that correlation between the condenser loop and my two my heat source and my heat dump. So my lake well, this was now this has to represent my geothermal and my cooling tower. Again, eQUEST only allows you to connect a lake well to this loop-to-loop heat pump. So I came up with this idea of creating a schedule for my annual lake temperatures that would represent what I'm getting from geothermal, which is 90 degrees in the wintertime, and from my cooling tower, which is 80 degrees. So I created an annual schedule, temperature schedule. So the days, weeks and days are, you break out the schedules. But so my day schedule was, winter day schedule is 90-degree temperature. Summer day schedule is 70 degrees, or no, 80 degrees, sorry. So this is my schedule for my lake temperature. And I had to play around with these dates because I believe what was happening was the model, when the building ran, it needs cooling basically on those shoulder seasons in the fall and the spring. You need cooling in the spring, and fall. And so I'd run it, and at those dates, I had different dates in there. Basically, it was arbitrary or best guess to get it to work. But because basically this is telling it that from January 1st to March 31st, the geothermal is on, and the loop temperature being provided is 90 degrees. Then until after that, from November until November 15th, the loop temperature, the cooling tower is on, and the temperature of the loop is 80 degrees. And beyond that, it goes back to heating, which is 90 degrees. I think, again, like I said, I had to mess around with those dates to get it to work. And again, I think that was because, if I moved that 331 back too far, and it still needed heating and or enough heat that it wasn't being provided by the 80-degree water. After that, after the cutoff dates, I believe what's happening is that loop-to-loop heat pump it does share energy between the chilled water and hot water loops, and after that, I believe there's enough sharing, and that if there is simultaneous loads, it's taken care of. But I guess all I cared about at that point was it ran.
So, Rick, just some clarification on my part. So, the fact that the loop is either at 90 or 70 doesn't mean the entire building is heating or cooling. There is some ability for it to do both, right?
Yeah. And again, I didn't verify, or I guess I didn't know where. I'm assuming reading on all that documentation on the loop-to-loop heat pump, that's what it says it does. eQUEST is doing that. It has the ability to, if it's cooling, it goes through 4 different explanations of that loop-to-loop: cooling only, heating only, cooling dominant, heating dominant, and when it's cooling dominant, it's basically rejecting heat into the condenser loop, and then the heating side, if needed, pulls it out. And it does say the efficiency of the chiller drops because the condenser loop is it'd be hotter coming back. Yeah, but like I said, reading all that documentation, it seemed pretty much what I had going on. So after I got the lake well representing my cooling tower and geothermal, I had to come up with a way to represent that fan energy on the cooling tower, since I don't have the cooling tower anymore, or it's not in the model. So there's an auxiliary under the condenser water loop. I figured I could put the power is what the motor is on so the 5.6 kW is the motor size on the cooling tower. And then I came up with an annual cooling tower schedule to run, and it's identical to the yearly dates are identical to that cooling loop, or the temperatures that I just showed you. So the day schedule, the cooling tower is not running during heating, and it's on during summer. So if you go back to that date, the cooling tower annual schedule is the same as these dates here. So that energy for the cooling tower is off till the 31st, on until the 15th, and then off again to the 31st. So it coincides with when the cooling is going on with these dates. So this is the day schedule for the tower summer day schedule, and this was I believe, I couldn't recollect entirely. I was looking back. At first I thought I mimicked or masked the same percentages as like a fan schedule that was built in, but I think I just took a best guess on loads for a daytime and what that tower would be using. So at noon it's 50% and then ramps up, and later in the afternoon. But basically this was a good approximation based on experience. And then again, the winter day schedule is everything zero, it's off. So the cooling tower is assumed to not be running, and any cooling again that's needed during those times is being gained from the hot water, or being shared within the building. So I've got the geothermal, or I've got the cooling tower and the geothermal represented with the lake well. I've accounted for the cooling tower fan energy. Now I had to account for the pump energy on both the condensing, or on the cooling tower, and the geothermal pump. There's a pump out on site that pumps the geothermal water. This one was a little more tricky, I guess, or took some thinking or hoping, I guess. I got lucky. Both pumps were the same size. They're 7.5 horsepower, and I figured, well, one or the other is going to be available at all times. If it's heating, the geothermal pump's going to be running or be available in the wintertime, and in the summertime, the cooling is going to be available. So I inputted one pump on the, if you go back, or if you scan out. So this is just under, maybe a little farther. So it's just you see the highlighted, it's the condensing loop pump on the, so geo cooling tower pump right there. So it represents both of those pumps, and again, like I said, this is going to be running all the time, but in real life it would be either the geothermal or the cooling tower. Fortunately, they're both the same size, so I get. What's that? Yes, yeah. Well, actually, no. I told it. I can tell it it's a variable speed pump. So I believe. I know the cooling tower one is. I can't remember if the geothermal one out on site actually is called out on the civil plans. We didn't specify that, but So the last thing I had to account for, I guess, was those runaround loops. How am I going to model those? Again, eQUEST is error-based, so it doesn't do any, as far as I know, I couldn't find any way to do a runaround loop. So I modeled the two, well, let me backtrack here. They use these energy recovery units or the runaround loops are used on a purge system. These air handlers on the shops, you know, if they get a bunch of smoke or something in there, bad fumes, they can flip the switch. It goes to 100%. The units go to 100% outside air, which are 13,000. At least on this unit was 13,000. I think they're both the same size. So that's the only time these runaround loops are utilized. So I modeled as I figured I could model as, it's not a wheel. That wouldn't be a very good application. So I modeled as a plate and frame heat exchanger. And again, they're not running all the time. I would like to take credit for that 13,000 CFM and put 13,000 CFM in my lead baseline model 100, all the time. I would have killed it. But we figured between me and the design engineer in our office that these purge systems would be used once a week during school non-break times. So again, I came up with this heat exchanger schedule, annual schedule, and it basically operates the ERBs 1 hour a week on during school sessions. So the pump power on the runaround loop, I figured I could put in as heat exchanger power, and so that's all I did. That power up there is the power of the pump motor, and so when it's on, it's going to be using that power, which is what's going to be happening with the runaround loop. The pump's going to be running and just circulating. The pressure drops, I use the same. I use the water pressure drops. So hopefully that's going to be representative. So the lead inputs, you've probably all seen this, or it's the new Excel spreadsheet that it's kind of handy. That lead has you fill out, kind of allows you to get your head around the project. And it's actually, when I first saw, I think this was the first job that I saw this spreadsheet on, and like, wow, what's this? And then actually I liked it. It makes it go back and look at the whole project and understand. But yeah, this one item here, all proposed HVAC systems and related parameters can be modeled directly in the energy simulation program used. That was an emphatic no. And I don't think at the bottom there, I don't think it showed up. There's a place to explain. I wrote that's where, it started there. But basically I explained everything that, there's much more to that than what's there. But basically I explained everything I talked about was how I represented the cooling tower, the geothermal, the fan energy on the cooling tower, and the pumps, and then the runaround loop as well. So this is just the lead template that I filled out, and I'm saving 77% on cooling, or 79 on cooling, 77 in heating. The pumps were obviously way off because, and that makes sense, the baseline system that I'm comparing it to was a packaged BAB system, DX. So those, the percentages savings didn't seem outlandish. If you go to the next one, well, the fans was nothing that I really did. That was just based on premium efficiency motors and that sort of thing. And then the next one. Oh, maybe the next one. Sorry, I don't. So I had energy savings of 37%, cost savings of 36.5%, which earned me 13 lead points, which doesn't seem like that outlandish, or I wasn't seeing like a 200% savings. and or anything crazy. So I was happy to see that it seemed representative, seemed plausible, and it also helped that I think we had told the owners that we were going to get 11 or 12, 13 points. So anyway.
That's out of how many now? 20 or 18?
This is still lead. I think this is lead 2. It's still 19. I think so. I don't know if the new version. So the final conclusion on this project, definitely not exact, but hopefully representative. The energy and cost savings seem reasonable. The results aren't, too extreme. I'm not gaining, claiming all 19 points. I think your lead always, if you don't, the closer you get to perfect, the more they're going to scrutinize your job, and then pray for lead acceptance. So yes, it hasn't been submitted yet. Actually, this was a great chance because I finished this. This is probably close to a year ago that I did all this, or at least last spring, early January, February, and so I'm anticipating lead questions and lead challenges. So this was a good exercise in remembering what I did, and hopefully I can explain it to them and get them to sign off. But definitely interesting. I was quite proud that I got it all to work, and it seems representative, and but a very unique system. And I was happy that eQUEST had that loop-to-loop heat pump. I'd never used that, and lead is, or I mean, eQUEST is probably most of you have found is there's no like user-friendly tutorial. You got to search on your own and or on blogs and stuff, and so I can't even remember where I found. I right-clicked on one of the inputs and found probably one of the chiller inputs and found all those different chillers that you can use, and that loop-to-loop was just what I needed. So it was just a matter of getting it to work or getting the the geothermal and the cooling tower and everything connected and representative. So.
I've got a question. Can you explain the runaround MCA, just kind of their basic concept of what they're doing in the project? Because to understand that they're part of a purge, to where they're only being used during a certain amount of time. But I mean, they're essentially just trying to, it's like a water heat recovery system, essentially, right? So it's just preheating or pre-cooling the air handler coils when they're going to that pull-out or that.
Yeah, the runaround, you have a plate and frame, or you have an energy wheel, or you have, it's just another form of energy recovery. And you use a runaround loop when you want to absolutely make sure there's no cross-contamination. And I think the design engineer taught in our office, he didn't know what was going to be exhausting out of the room and stuff if they had an emergency. But yeah, the runaround loop is basically water to water with 2 heat exchangers, and the outside air or the exhaust air goes through one energy or heating heat exchanger, heats up the water, and you take it to another heat exchanger on your outside air. So basically a pump and a couple heat exchangers.
Any other questions?
Do you have any tips for getting that water-to-water heat pump to work? Seems like it's a little bit buggy.
The chilled water or the chiller or the heat. Yeah, those dates. Well, I guess it depends on what, if you're using a lake well, that's what it's. I think if you just use defaults, my complications were trying to get it to work with, or try to represent the geothermal loop and the cooling tower. But the default is, it's meant to hook to a lake well, and I think in those instructions it talks about a lake well being like 45 degrees year-round or something, and I think if you set it to a lake well and used all the defaults, it would run automatically. So, but as far as getting it to run, you mean with my scenario, or?
I've tried it a couple times and really give up. It's working the way expected.
You've tried that loop-to-loop heat pump chiller? Yeah, I guess I'm not sure what have you used? What have you used for a heat source? Again, the only thing that eQUEST lets you connect that to, that chiller, is a lake well. So you're either doing that or you're making it representative like I did. But
so you work with Mark Fluttergill on the lead. I know he's doing the lead tracking and submission for it. I don't know if he's got to your.
No, well, refresh me that name. I worked with him. He's with? Who is he with?
His company is Mahogany Enterprises, so he's basically just trying to get all the lead documentation put together and stuff.
Okay. That name's I don't know if he's got. Did he work somewhere else, or I can't remember where I've seen.
He's worked with Lowe's Architecture.
That's where I know him. Yeah. Well, in our office, I'm primarily responsible for the EA Credit 1, the modeling and all that. The rest of the credits, another gal in our office, Shelby Stewart, she handles all that stuff. And I'm not even sure. She hits up. Well, I've uploaded this and hit final. I don't think it's been submitted to lead yet. I don't know where she is on all the other credits, but she's probably working with him, maybe. I'm not sure where it's at. It's got to be, I'm not sure. Yeah, it's got to be pretty close, yeah. Or starting, yeah.
I'd just like to point out as well that if any of our online viewers have any questions, to feel free to go ahead and type those into your questions pane. I'll go ahead and relay those to Rick. In the meantime, I've got another question for you, Rick, about something that you mentioned at the beginning of your presentation, which was that you did the modeling for the project and that Charles in the office did the design. And I was wondering if you could talk about the difference between doing a modeling process like that versus, I imagine, with some other projects you serve as both the lead mechanical designer and the energy modeler, right? So, I mean, what are the differences between those two processes? Which one do you like more? I was wondering if you could just talk about that a little bit.
Well, obviously the one that's easiest, or, if you got the whole project, is you're responsible for the whole project. It's, why you did the mechanical systems a certain way, and then when you go to model them, why. This one Todd and I had to sit down and we talked, probably a couple hours, and I had to figure out why he did this and how the systems worked. And so yeah, it's much easier to, if you're responsible for the whole project. Sometimes that's, time-wise, constraint-wise, that's not possible. Sometimes the modeler is not a design engineer, so is not capable of doing the design. And but if they are separate people, obviously it comes down to good communication and yeah, back and forth. So.
Other questions? What are the final EUIs on the baseline of the
The
energy use intensity, kBTU square foot?
Where did I find them, or?
What were your results? What was the,
I
think I saw them
they might be in the just developed by the template when I inputted them.
it keeps going down.
Maybe one more. I think it's, yeah, here you go.
Kilowatts per hour per school, kind of like that. Nobody does. Carlos, you should know that version off the top of your head, right?
3.5 by 2.41.1.
Yeah.
All right.
That's like 55 range.
7 times 3.
But you had high process loads.
Yeah, they gave us the owner. As you probably in lead, you got to have so much percentage of process, or you have to tell them why you don't have. But all we had really for it's a single-story building. There's no elevators. There's no cooking facilities or refrigeration or anything. Really, the only process loads we had were plug loads, and then we were given approximate equipment loads in those shop areas, or what they anticipated based on what the electrical was told to design their circuits to and stuff, total load-wise. So that's what we based our process loads on, was just what we were told. The owner told us what they might have in those shop areas, welders and I don't know what else they would use, but.
I think when you're saving with load, when you have all that process load, it's hard to balance that.
Right.
Yeah, so it's 92 versus 54 for the electricity, and then if we added the natural gas, it's 126 versus 81. Right, no, sorry, I converted those. That's, let's see, 92 plus it's 102 versus 64-ish, essentially. Right. Which translates to what was it, 36 and 35-ish energy savings, energy cost savings, so makes sense. Excellent. Rick, do you know if there's any plans to go back and do any type of measurement verification? It seems like such a complex system that it might be interesting to go back and see, how the two are performing. Because, like you said, it's representative, so it's not going to be exact, but it'd be interesting to see how close you're able to get. And
Right.
with the representative methodology.
Yeah, actually, Tim and I were talking about this before the meeting, and that would probably, I don't know if there would be measurement and verification at that. Again, that probably would fall on Shelby. I can't remember what that. I think there's a lead credit, isn't there? A lead credit for measurement. I'm not sure if we're even going after that. What's that?
There is now a lead version of that.
Yeah, I'm not sure what if on the old version if we're attempting that credit or if it's available. As most of you know, as far as lead modeling, you get some lead. In fact, I think they even acknowledge that the lead rating system is not intended to accurately reflect real results, and it's basically a comparison tool. So again, once I got a representative, it's like wash my hands. No, it's not that. But yeah, I'm not sure what's going on with the measurement verification. Yeah.
Any other questions? Any questions from our folks online? Does not look like it. All right. Well, with that, let's go and thank Rick for presenting for us. We're going to pass out some quick evaluations. Here would be still time to fill those out before you leave. All right, thanks to our online listeners.